Hi friends! Welcome to our Creativity Club. I'm Meredith, the brand ambassador for Faber-Castell USA Creativity for Kids. Today we are opening up and doing our gnome garden door. Yay! Alright, let's look at what's inside. Alright, we've got our instructions. We'll put those right here. And wow, awesome. We have our paints, 2 paint brushes, 1 broad tip, 1 fine tip. We have our adorable little welcome mat, our sweet little gnome with a watering can, our amazing little gnome door. Oh, look at that. And it opens up. Yay! Cute. And what else do we have? Oh, our sweet little mushroom stakes. Our gnome sweet gnome sticker. And then, of course, our Share Your Gnome Door on Creativity for Kids hashtag for Instagram or our Facebook page. Okay, so as you open up your gnome garden door kit, you'll notice that everything is included on this piece of cardboard. Now, this is actually a great item to hold onto and paint on, because the first thing we do is tell you to cover your work surface because you will be painting, so you might get your table dirty or painted if you don't cover your surface. So we'll put everything else aside for now. I'll just right there is good. And we'll take a look at what's in the instructions here. Okay, so as I said, cover your work surface, wear a smock or old clothes, the paint may stain. Paint can settle and separate over time, so mix each color thoroughly before you begin painting. And of course, if you're changing colors, rinse and dry your brush. And let's see here. This is a special note about our paint. Our paint is water resistant or weather resistant. So it's got a special little something in here so you can put your gnome door outside and not have to worry about it. We do recommend holding onto your paint though, so just in case it does get chipped or something, you can fix up your paint job. Okay, so the first thing we have to do is decide on how we want to paint our gnome door. Now you can look at the box and there's a couple different examples. So on the front, on the back, on each side, you can see there's different gnome doors painted. So you can choose to copy one of those, or you can choose to just go ahead and decorate your own using your own ideas. So I'm actually going to be inspired by the door on the front of the package. So I'm going to start with painting the top of the mushroom red with white spots, and maybe add a little bit of yellow, but we'll see. We'll get there. All right, so as we mentioned, when you open up your paint, we'll look closely in here, you might see that it has settled, and what that means is there might be a little bit of loose paint up on top, so you just want to mix it in. And that's not always the case, but sometimes that's the case. So how we created the little circles on the top of the mushroom is just by drawing them out first. So if you draw them out first, you know where not to paint with red. So you can just kind of make different little circles. And then just go ahead, and I'm using the broad tip brush to paint this because this is a large area. So in general, you just want to use your smaller fine tip brush for details or getting in between areas that you wouldn't be able to reach with your broad tip brush. So we do want to cover the entire top of the mushroom. It is styrofoam, you'll notice. So the paint goes on pretty darn easily. Quite lovely and quick. And why I love this kit is because it just makes me think of some magical world where gnomes hang out with fairies, because we do have a fairy door kit too. So if you enjoy this kit, you might want to look for our fairy door kit, and then you can welcome gnomes and fairies into your environment. So here we go. And as I mentioned, we do want to cover the entire area, all of the top, and that means painting the underneath as well. So underneath here. Zoop. Just like this. And this is acrylic paint, like I mentioned. It does have a special ingredient in it that will, that does make it weatherproof. So it dries pretty quickly, like most acrylic paint does. Now you're going to notice when you're painting on the wood that, I'm going to paint the back too, that the paint will soak into the wood, where it doesn't soak into the styrofoam because wood is porous, and this styrofoam, the paint will just kind of lay on top. So it will take a little bit more time for the paint to dry on the top than it will on the wood. So I'm going to go ahead and let this dry, and I'm actually going to put this paintbrush underneath so the top of our mushroom that I just painted isn't laying flat on the board down here because it's still wet. So got my handy dandy water here and a paper towel to dry off my paintbrush after rinsing it. So when I decorate a gnome door or a fairy door, I try to think about, okay, what does a gnome do? Like, what would a gnome need inside their little house? So I try and imagine, you know, like, oh, a gnome might need like a little table to sit at, or a little stump to sit on, like, you know, maybe a tree stump, or maybe it's like a little pine cone that he's like carved out into a chair. So these are the types of things that you want to start thinking about while you're painting your gnome door. So we're going to kind of put that in the back of our minds and think about that while we paint the outside. And the outside of this gnome door is going to have some flowers, and as you can see, the door itself looks like a leaf. So you can choose. Do you want to paint that green, like, you know, maybe it's a leaf in the summertime, or maybe it's a leaf in the autumn and it's kind of orangey and yellow. So it's up to you, however you want to paint it. But I'm going to go with the green, so more of a summertime leaf. And I'd like to add some yellow detail to it. So I'll go in with the yellow first and just kind of go along the veins of the leaf, just like that. And we're going to just move that out of the way. Now, one thing to keep in mind is how much paint you put on the outside of the door. So we don't want our door, so I would recommend not painting the edge of the door so it doesn't stick when you close it. So here's our little bits of yellow detail in here. And now I'm going to paint right over most of it with the green. And just kind of leave some of that yellow detail showing. Now you will notice that the paint is just getting sucked right into the wood of this door. So it's kind of cool. Now, I don't know about you, but I really like it when paint kind of naturally blends together. And that's what's happening because the yellow is still a little bit wet in places. So it's creating this really cool yellowy green effect around where the yellow paint is still wet. And I'll hold that up so you can see a little bit better. So right in here, this beautiful greeny yellow is happening, and I like that. So as you're painting, and I just love painting because it's very meditative in a way. It kind of just relaxes you. Just having the paintbrush swipe along whatever it is you're painting. It's really fun and relaxing. So while you're painting, happy little accidents like that can happen. And then if you like the effect, you can do it intentionally the next time. And now I'm thinking more about our gnome. And I imagine that our gnome is like, what he does during the day is probably like gather a lot of stuff. Like he probably gathers acorns and little berries and like, you know, stops by his friend the rabbit's house and like hangs out there for a little bit. Maybe they have tea or something. I don't know. But it's good to think about who you're designing your door for. All these little details will help bring your gnome door more to life and make it more unique to your liking. So, and when you're painting around this little door handle, around the latch, you're going to want to make sure that you move it around a little bit so the paint doesn't make it stick so you can't move it. So just move it around a little so it doesn't get stuck in one position. Zoop. Cool. So let's take a look. All right. So this is how it looks so far. And I think it's a little bit too much yellow, so I'm just going to go back in and kind of swipe the green right up to the yellow. Make it a little bit more greeny and a little bit less yellowy. Now, I would love to see how you guys paint your gnome doors too. So, if you are following along and you are painting a gnome door as well, and I'll repeat this later, but you can have your parent or an older friend take a picture of it and put it up on our Facebook page, Creativity for Kids, or on our Instagram, hashtag #CreativityforKids, and that would be really cool so then I can see what you're doing. Okay, so how about some flowers? What we want to do now, and I'm going to check the back of our, it's still wet, so I'm going to still prop it up with my paintbrush, but this time I'm propping it up with the paintbrush that I'm not going to be using, which is the broad tip. So for making my flowers, I'm going to use the more fine tip brush. And I'm going to make the stems first. And my stem is going to kind of wind all the way up here. And have a couple little leaves like this, little on each side to create some balance. And maybe some grass down here. There we go. And right up, and then at the end of my stem is where I'll put the head of the flower. And over here I'm going to do a similar thing where I'm going to just create the stem first. Now this is in the way, so I'm going to move it just so it's enough out of the way that I can paint by it. And up. And we'll add a leaf here. And I make my leaves just by kind of making an elongated oval with like pointy tips on each side. And it's a rather generic, or like it's a standard type of leaf that a lot of different flowers and plants have. So that's why I paint that leaf most often. So it's not exactly detailed to one type of flower. It's kind of a general leaf that could go towards many different types of flowers. So we have one flower stem here, one flower stem here, and I think I will maybe just add another one kind of coming out in the background over here. There we go. All right, so let's make our flowers. So we are given all of these colors. So we have red, yellow, green, blue, brown, and white. So if you wanted to make a more traditional mushroom, you might want to be using more of the brown and the yellow and kind of mixing that together. But again, this is more of a fantasy type of a mushroom gnome home. So we're just doing whatever we want. I'm going to mix the yellow and the red to create an orange flower. So we'll close up the green. And when you're mixing colors, when you're mixing paint, you want to start with the lighter color first. And that's because you can always add more of the darker color to it until you get the color that you want. So I'm just going to use my paper towel over here as a little mixing palette and just take a scoop of the yellow and put it down over here. And I'm gonna make enough so I don't run out, because you don't usually want to run out of the color that you just made. So some scoops of yellow and then a dot of red, and just mix it together and see what color you get. So this is a nice orange. Now if you wanted to make it a darker orange, just go ahead and add more red. But I like this orange, so I'm going to use this. So we'll do the petals of the flower. And again, kind of like oval shaped, like so. And down here, just like that. So our 5-petaled flower. And then I'm going to use the rest of the orange, kind of creating an outline of the flower over on the other side of our door. And then I'm going to fill it in with yellow. So it's going to be multicolored. And again, I know what's going to happen is the paint will mix a little bit, which makes me happy. So we'll add some yellow to it, just like this. Yep, and there's the little bit of mixing. And I'll hold that up so you can see it a little bit better. So you can see how the yellow and the orange are just starting to mix together, which creates a really cool effect. Like that. There we go. And down here I had one more little flower, so we'll just add some petals, some yellow petals down here. Painting flowers is fun. But again, you don't have to have flowers on yours. You might want to include like a lightning bug, or maybe a little friendly ladybug, or you know, something other than flowers. It's up to you, whatever you would like. All right, so we have the outside of the front painted, and on the sides you can go ahead and add whatever you'd like to the sides as well. But for now, I'm going to leave mine blank and focus on the inside of our gnome home. So now is the time that we want to really express who our little gnome is. So I mentioned a little stool for our gnome, or maybe a table or something like that. Oh, and I do want to mention this too. So this little sticker, our Gnome Sweet Gnome sticker, you want to kind of plan out where you'd like to include that in your gnome home. So I think I'll have it right front and center, so when you open up the door, you'll see Gnome Sweet Gnome, and it'll be right above his head if he's standing inside of his home. So we'll imagine this is where our little sticker is going to go. So I'm going to paint the background of our gnome home, and I think I'll paint it brown. And I'm going to switch again. Let's see, how's the back of our, oh, it's almost dry. But until it's completely dry, I'm just going to set it up on our paintbrush again. Okay, so since we're doing a large area, I'm going to use my broad tip brush. And just paint it all nice and brown. A nice warm color, because we want our gnome to be nice and cozy inside, especially on those cooler days, cooler summer nights. Nice and tucked into his little gnome home. And I really do like the idea of including a little lightning bug, so I think the lightning bug will actually be something of a lantern for our gnome home. So how am I going to do that? I think I'll include a little lantern over here, so when he closes his door, he'll still have light inside. And we'll get to that. We'll let this dry, and we'll go ahead and create a little cute little lightning bug lantern. So to do that, I'm going to use my fine tip brush. I'll just switch these out. And a lightning bug, to me, is mostly yellow as it's glowing. So how I'm going to create that glowing effect is I'm going to take some white and just create a circle with the white, just like that. And while it's still wet, I'm going to take the yellow and from the center out, just kind of mix it together and leave a little circle of white on the outside. So a little close up. That's our little glowing light. And then let's see if we have any of that orange left. Yeah, we'll just put a little bit of orange in the center, a little bit more yellow, and that's the more that's the darker area of our glowing lightning bug. So now we need to add a little bit of detail to represent that that's a lightning bug. So I'm going to use our blue, or if you have a black pen or a little permanent marker, you might want to use that instead. But just to represent, I'm going to put a little wing and another little wing and a little body, and that will be our lightning bug. You have to use your imagination a little bit, but that's okay. Alright, so we have our background, we have our little gnome. We're going to wait till it dries a little bit more, and since we do have a little bit of time before it completely dries, I'm going to include a sweet little table here just to the side, so our gnome has somewhere to set maybe a little bouquet of flowers, or if he is having tea with his ladybug friend or his bunny friend, this is where they can sit. There we go. Little table, and that's a little bit dark. You might not be able to see it, but I'll hold it up. And a little tablecloth. There we go, just like that. And let's add our Gnome Sweet Gnome sticker. So we'll just peel it off of the backer. And it is epoxy, so it stands out a little bit. And we'll put it right in the center, just like that. Now, push it down on all the corners and it should be okay. Alright, so you can keep going and add as much more detail as you want inside or on the outside of your gnome home. We do have one thing to finish on the top though. We do want to paint these little white areas with the white paint, because we did want to make sure that it looks finished, and just leaving the styrofoam will not be very finished. So we do want to just add some white, just like that, over top of our dots. There we go. 4 and 5. There we go. Okay, so we'll flip it over. And this is where you can put the sticker. If you do have it on display outside and someone comes along and sees it, they might flip it over and just stick this on here. Flip it over and then they can see where more gnome garden gnome doors can be found on our Facebook or Instagram page, just like that. Now you'll also notice there's a little hanger. So you could put a little nail either in your wall or like in a tree or somewhere, and you could actually hang this off of the nail. So that's what this is for. You can always just set it up against the wall as well. Now, one thing we did not paint yet are our cute little mushrooms. So if you want to add more color to your little display, like I do, I'm going to make one of my mushrooms blue and one of my mushrooms yellow. And just like before, just make sure that you leave, if you are including spots on the top of your mushroom, you draw out where those spots are going to be first. So there's our blue, and here's our yellow. And I'll paint the spots white. So, just like this. And the base of our mushroom, I will paint brown, I think. And then these have these cute little sticks attached to the bottom of them, so you can push them into the ground so they'll stand right outside of your gnome door, your little gnome home. This is so cute. And while you're painting, you might want to think, what is my little garden gnome's name? And maybe that's something you would want to include. You might want to draw or write on your gnome door. That might be really cute. And I think we need a couple more little white spots just to give it some more interest on here. Cute. And maybe some up here too. You could just keep going and going for real. This is so cute. You could make it as long or short of a little crafting experience as you want. You could do a little bit and come back to it and finish it later, or you could do it all in one sitting like what we're doing today. It's all up to you. Oh, it would be really cute if you wanted to make this more Valentine's Day-y and make these little white spots hearts instead of circles. That would be cute. Alright, so when you do want to display your garden gnome door, like I mentioned, you can hang it up right outside of a tree or on a tree, or lean it up next to a tree, and then put each one of your cute little mushrooms next to it. You can just poke those right into the ground. And then you're given this cute little welcome mat, so then you would just put this right out in front, and your little gnome you could either put inside and close him in, or you could display him outside with the other mushrooms and the welcome mat as well. So this is our wonderful gnome garden door. And I hope you enjoyed crafting with me and painting this adorable little door. I look forward to seeing what you created. So again, if you want to share, just have an adult or an older friend take a picture and post it up on our Creativity for Kids Facebook page or hashtag Creativity for Kids on Instagram. And I can't wait for you to join me again. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.